join us today. I'm here to lead you on in a narrator sort of way.
It all started when I was 19. I'd done some drama work when I was in my youth, but I hadn't really sort of continued it because I became a little bit too old to do some of the clubs that I had initially. And then one of my friends got me in touch with a chairman of this society known as Broxbourne Theatre Company. And I got involved in one of the shows and they were struggling to cast a part and I was given that part. And through there, I managed to meet some new people and engage in my hobby. And I was with a group of adults, so it was a new experience. I wasn't working with any kids. I was the young person in the group, but it was really nice to find a new sort of avenue of continuing my hobby. What I love about it is the chance, firstly, to express myself and continue my art. You know, it is a passion of mine. I love performing and, you know, I could do it every day. To me, it's the camaraderie as well, like finding a group that really I can cement myself in. It feels very much like a group of friends gathering together to produce a couple of shows a year.
In a lot of shows I've seen, the amateur production has been nearly as good as a professional. You know, sometimes you really wonder whether you've watched an amateur show.
It's different to the professional world where you're doing it for money. You do pay to do it, but the rewards I think are a lot better than the former. Here I feel more enrichment because I'm doing it with people I know and love. That to me is the most gratifying thing. And I get to go in front of an audience. You know, who doesn't want to do that? The COVID pandemic was the wrecking ball I didn't know was coming. You can't have too much of a good thing. It was the only real thing that could have ever prevented me to continue this passion. Shows were postponed, societies went to online meetings, there were hardly any in-person activities. The world of amateur theatre had become a blur.
Watching it indoors on your own is not nowhere near the same as the atmosphere and the contact with everybody else's reaction around you to what's going on. No, there's no comparison. Live is always best.
Most amateur performers live their lives doing jobs to put food on the table so they can reward themselves with their true hobby, because it is super difficult to do this for a living. Empty space filled my world. A void had entered. Darkness crept in, with no light at the end of this long tunnel. I hadn't initially kind of worried about COVID when it was first announced. Like late 2019, I'd heard about this virus that was apparently going to plague us, and I thought it was all over dramatic and over sensationalized. But then when I was rehearsing for a show back in March 2020 and when we went into lockdown, that's when it hit me. It was hard to accept at first, and then dealing with the isolation, knowing that I wasn't able to do what I loved because of public health reasons was very sad. And coming to terms with that, it might sound like an exaggeration, but it did feel as though I was grieving a loss.
First thing that we did was, that's when we started using Zoom for committee meetings, which we still do most of the time now. And I organised a quiz night for a get-together, and we had 2 or 3 sort of Zoom get-togethers.
My society that I perform with shut down for 2 years, which was a real blow. It was a real blur of confusion. We had Zoom meetings and Zoom calls where the chairman was trying to progress the society and trying to keep us functioning through the pandemic. And we had a show that was delayed for 2 years because of this. And we tried our very best to get it off the ground and even perform it somewhere else. but it wasn't possible. There was just too much going on with the restrictions constantly changing. The government can't make up their minds. A lot of other societies were thrown into disarray as well, and the whole idea of safety, people weren't feeling safe enough to go and watch a performance or participate in a performance. And we'd spoken about certain measures that we would put in place if we were to have returned, but it was not meant to be. I know some places did go online and did try to do Zoom events, but it just wasn't the same. And in terms of my personal experience, all I can say is I suffered a decline because of that. I was put in a bad situation of mental health, and my mental health declined, and my physical health declined as well. I gained quite a lot of weight. I was in a job that I wasn't very happy with. Yeah, it took its toll. I didn't like the person that I became because I'd lost that part of me that I loved. I almost became a bit of a shell of myself, but at the same time, I always had that little bit of hope that it would come back. But the pandemic really did a number on me. I wasn't ever sure how it got to that stage, and I was worried if I ever did go back, would they treat me differently? I never would have wanted to give up, but I thought at the time, because of the state of the world, I might have to give up, and because of my physical state, my mental state, I wouldn't be able to do this anymore in a safe way. I didn't like what had happened to me. Back in that 2-year period, everything was a murky bliss. I know deep down that, I was on the verge of being asked to leave the group because of my physical health. And it all comes down to the fact of costumes. Would I have been able to actually wear any costumes that would have looked good, and would they have been able to source anything that would have fit me? And that was always in the back of my mind, and that sort of played on me for a while. Now I look back on that and I go, wow, that's quite a dark time. But if anything, sometimes you need to kind of fall so far to kind of pick yourself up. So in a way, it had to happen, and I'm glad it happened, but at the time, I would not have known what to do.
Oh, it took me a long while to get back into the swing of it. Partly trying to remember your lines, which was a novelty after 2 years. And then you're standing in the wings worrying about, am I going to miss the cue line? But after a couple of performances, I was standing, oh, here it comes, ready, right, on, soon. It took a while to get in the swing of it, really. You don't even think about Amdram. You're doing other things because that's on the shelf. I think, there's got to be a lot more push on publicity to make people aware, because there's an awful lot of entertainment out there.
Holy cow! Never once have I regretted this. It has given me the chance to grow as a performer, and to have received the recognition from NODA and my fellow members has been the greatest accomplishment since I've started. COVID was a horrible time for me and a lot of people, but in a lot of respects, since the lockdown, I have made so many more changes to my life because of the misery that I was in, and because of the mental and physical decline that I'd suffered. I had to force myself one day to stand up and say, no, I've had enough. I'm done with this misery. I want to change, and I want my life to change. Hence why I decided to go and become a student. I've got aspirations to do well in the film industry. I wanted to lose weight, and I have since lost weight since the pandemic, which I'm very pleased about. And now that the world is more open, I'm able to engage with my performing again. So if I were to give anybody any advice, I would say, find something that you love and hold on to it, because no matter how bad things get, you've always got to find something that you're passionate about. Even if it becomes difficult at times and demanding, the more you love something, the easier it is to invest in. Hence why I sacrificed a lot of my money towards this hobby, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I wouldn't want to do this professionally, because I know that it would take a lot of the joy out of it. When you start doing it for work, you would suddenly feel more disingenuous towards it. I still feel as fresh about it as I did back in 2016 when I started doing this. This last few years has been tough, but I've proved to a lot of people that, you know, I'm a stronger individual than I thought, and I don't have to be miserable about myself. I am worthy of something, and everybody is. So why not find something you're passionate about and strive to achieve your goals? If you want to express yourself in a creative way, you know, theatre is great. You know, it teaches you a lot of confidence and a lot of self-respect, and you know, you get to pretend to be someone else, so that's not always a bad thing.